On August 29th, 2024, the unthinkable happened and rocked not only the hockey world, but forever changed the lives of a family. My name is Samantha Wismer, and I have created this tribute for John and Matthew Gaudreau. It will feature players and community members speaking on the impact their brothers left and what they meant to them. On behalf of myself and Old City Sports Network, I want to give my heartfelt condolences and prayers to Guy, Jane, Katie, Kristen, Devin, Meredith, Madeline, Noah, Johnny Jr., Carter, and Tripp. John and Maddie will always remain in our thoughts and memories.
Maddie and Johnny, those guys changed the game forever. Two undersized guys who had so much skill and so much tenacity on the ice. They'll forever be known as some of the greatest players to ever come through Jersey. I think both of them are in the New Jersey Hockey Hall of Fame. They've had amazing careers, both of them, and I was fortunate enough to be able to play with Maddie for a year, and we went to high school together, and I miss those guys so much. And then I think the coolest part about their legacy is that they'll live on forever.
They made a huge impact on Jersey hockey. Ever since they came and made an impact around the world, you see a lot of Jersey players come out now. As you see, the NHL signings, AHL, ECHL, Division I guys have jumped, and I think they had a huge impact in it, so we thank them for it, and we always remember them for that.
Everything, right? They were revolutionary hockey players. You don't get a nickname like Johnny Hockey for no reason, and then his brother was right up there with him. They were influential in the game, especially for me growing up. Watching those guys as a defenseman, you can't really explain the skill both of them had, and at their size, it was unbelievable. So they did a lot for the game.
I think John and Maddie, they did a lot for the sport. Obviously, just being undersized and having the skill level and the talent and success that they both had kind of put other undersized players on the map going forward. I know that Cole Caulfield's talked about it a lot, and I think it just became a way for people to not write off players who aren't 6'4".
They opened up a lot of avenues for smaller players and skilled players, and the game's gotten so much faster and more skilled. And you see these young kids coming up who don't have the size, but they make a huge impact on the game. And that's a lot to contribute to the Gaudreaus.
The Gaudreaus did a lot. They inspired a whole generation of hockey players. I first saw Johnny play for Gloucester Catholic, and it was just inspiring to see everything he's done through college, through the USA, and what he did in the National Hockey League. Obviously, it's the best league, and you could see by the reception of his jersey goes everywhere with Team USA, and it's just an honor to have played against him and to know him a little bit, and his impact is going to go a long way.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to be my age and be able to find two people that have affected the hockey community in the way that Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau have. That last name is just wholesome. You'd also be hard-pressed to find somebody that didn't know who they were. The wholesome and welcoming last name. Regardless of what city Johnny was playing in the NHL, he was a fan favorite, always signing autographs. Didn't matter where he was. There was the Flyers practice facility. Didn't matter where. Signing autographs, meeting fans, doing what professional athletes should be doing, but just loving every minute of it.
I live in South Jersey, and I live about 20 minutes from Hollydale Rink, which is the rink that Guy used to run. And so I would just skate there for media games and stuff. I'm not any good, but I saw the impact just that they had locally, in that rink. And then for all the times that Johnny was playing college, I would watch him in college because I knew he was from the area. They did play the Frozen Four at Wells Fargo at the time. Now we know the name has changed, but did play it there. And so I did get to cover all of that. And then I, got to really interview him more one-on-one at the rookie photo showcase back in the day. And then after that, every time he came in town, basically. So he always seemed to come in town with Calgary right around Thanksgiving. He would interview every single time. Like, he didn't miss. And so, like, you know, I respect that. And so I could see why players and fans would gravitate towards him, because he was always positive.
I mean, they revolutionized the game for Jersey guys. You know, people in Jersey, there's guys that made it, but never like that. I think they gave a lot of hope to hockey players in the Northeast that are used to going up to Massachusetts and Canada and Minnesota to compete with the best. And I think it shed light that there's a lot of talent right here in our backyard. And Johnny and Maddie both had it. And it was just special watching them skate, and gave a lot of inspiration to the guys.
And they both had a big one, especially in the state of New Jersey. I remember first time I was on the ice with Johnny was in this tournament, and I had some Dubuque stuff on. He had played there. He came up to me, talked to me a little bit, which was pretty cool. Being an undersized player, he was one of the guys I always looked up to.
To Columbus, it was such a big deal because he was arguably the first big star that chose Columbus of his own free will. Columbus has had stars in the past. They've had Rick Nash, they've had Zach Warninski, they've had Patrick Laine, of who got there via draft or by trade. You don't really see a small market like Columbus that hasn't had a lot of postseason success pick up such a big name in free agency. And they picked up Johnny Gaudreau, which was such a big deal because it had almost never happened before. The narrative surrounding Columbus has largely been that they can't keep their talent. And Gaudreau, I think, proved that completely wrong. He had this kind of authenticity, I think, that most people just don't have naturally. And I think when you have that kind of earnesty and that kind of honesty and that kind of authentic nature, I would say, it comes across, and fans knew it. And that's why he was so loved in Columbus, even though he didn't play in Columbus nearly as long as he did in Calgary. But it didn't really matter. He was still such a huge name in Columbus, and the fans loved him, and in response, he loved them back. And that's really all that you can't ask for.
You can't talk about Johnny without being able to talk about Matt. And while they each had their own unique gift to hockey, Johnny obviously being a 7-time All-Star, and Matt had just as much of an impact on the hockey world as well. Not only being able to play in college. I mean, I think many people know the story up in Boston College that the only reason that Johnny stayed was because he wanted to be able to play with his brother. So always have to put the two of them together, and you always want to remember that the most important thing to them was actually not hockey. It actually was the family aspect of it. They were inseparable. They were always together. And I think the way they changed the world is that we can all take a lesson from the way that they handled that, and that the relationship of family came first and foremost for them. It was visible. You could see the love, and just a tremendous lesson for all of us to take, just how close they were and the love that they showed.
It's definitely grown, definitely because of them. They were just two smaller boys from South Jersey, and they really put in the work and took advantage of all their opportunities, and nothing was given to them. They earned everything. Just the stories, hearing about their dad on the ice with Johnny and the Skittles, like that just shows that at such a young age, they were so driven and dedicated to the game.
Not just for hockey and not just for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but I feel like he changed how everyone looked at Columbus. He changed how even the own fans looked at their own team at Columbus. And then he made other fans across the league doubt what their own team was doing. That was a wild thing to be covering the the farm team, and he wants to be here, and nobody wants to come to Columbus, right? Like everyone talks about how no one wants to be there, and he had so many wonderful non-generic things to say. I think that's just a perfect way to even say what his like legacy is he's so uniquely him and embraced who he was as a person, that he knew that Columbus was it, and he liked the people there, and he knew that they were his people and they would love his family. And I think it just changed this whole section of hockey to look at Columbus like they're legit. And that's how smaller markets grow, is when people like Johnny Gaudreau picks those teams to play for.
When you think about hockey in New Jersey, especially with young kids growing up in this area, the Gaudreaus are like the first thing that comes to mind. One, with the impact that their dad had, just kind of training a lot of kids in this area, and also just the impact that the two guys, Johnny and Maddie, had just overall running skates, being out on the ice with young kids. Obviously they were, and especially Johnny, like the two kind of superstar young kids at the area, especially in high school, then going to Dubuque and things like that. That was, especially with me, just kind of seeing the firsthand of guys in this area kind of moving up into USHL, and just being around this rink and kind of seeing those guys kind of move up. And then obviously Johnny with his success in his career in the NHL. I just think they kind of were the benchmark of kind of this young group of young kids through New Jersey hockey, and kind of set that precedent of just kids growing up.
For the longest time, in the Philadelphia area in particular, but we've had local players occasionally who played professionally, even the NHL level, like for but there was never anybody who had the same level of a international impact that Johnny Gaudreau had. That I think sometimes when there's somebody who's from where you are, the general vicinity, who makes it really big, right, on an NHL level, an international level, I think that it inspires a lot of people locally, young players particularly, of course, to say, maybe I can do this. And one thing that both Matthew and Johnny were fantastic at was they never forgot where they came from, and giving back to hockey locally, whether it was South Jersey, the general Philadelphia area. I mean, a lot of people, including Johnny, would have loved to played in the Philadelphia market for the home team. Unfortunately, it was never to be. It maybe at one point it was greatly rumored, but I think that at a certain point that it stops being about what uniform they're wearing, and really about they become everybody's player, right? With Johnny in particular, where it felt like his successes were a success for everybody in the hockey community. And whether it was checking for charity, whether it was something in Gloucester County or whatever, like if he had the time, he would make the time. And Matthew was the same way. He wasn't an NHL player, but I remember during his time with the Reading Royals and other teams too, he was always somebody who connected with the fans, and they're just an absolute pleasure to cover too, from a media standpoint.
Well, I mean, they're huge. I mean, they definitely grew the game. Especially when it comes to high school. I know Matt did a lot for Gloucester Catholic, and I kind of built a relationship with him after playing him so many times in high school.
When Johnny arrived in Calgary, I mean, the Flames were sort of, I wouldn't say listing around, but they didn't really have a really clear direction. He was drafted, I think, a couple years before Jerome McGinley got traded, but he didn't go pro until a year or so after Jerome McGinley left the Flames. So the Flames were sort of looking for that player to sort of be the next guy. And Gaudreau managed to come in. He was the right guy at the right time for the hockey club, because I can't think of a player who really helped raise the team's standing in the league more quickly and more consistently than Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, maybe Matthew Tkachuk, but Tkachuk had the benefit that Gaudreau was already there, and Gaudreau and Sean Monahan and their connection had really allowed the Flames to start getting some traction in the standings. They'd been to, the Johnny Gaudreau's first year in the NHL. He went from being kind of an okay-ish player his first handful of games, and then something clicked, and then he was a point per game player, and he was you'd almost joke he was Johnny Automatic, because he was always good for like an amazing play or amazing goal or an amazing something in a game. And so that was a reason why a lot of Flames fans of this current generation, I think, fell in love with the team, because of Johnny Gaudreau and Monahan and those guys. And you take away Johnny Gaudreau from the Flames, and the team is a lot less fun, and Calgary hockey is a lot less interesting. And so I think we saw the outpouring of support for that family after Johnny and Matthew passed away. With I think the Saddledome Steps, there was sort of an impromptu shrine that no one said, hey, let's do this. People just decided to do that. And I think that says so much about what that family and Johnny in particular meant to this community, because I think they touched a lot of people without really knowing it, because of how good of people they were and how good of players they were.
Just growing up in New Jersey, it's hard to not know the Gaudreau name. I remember when I was 9, 10 years old, going to Prudential Center and watching him play for Gloucester Catholic, playing against Delbarton in the state championship. So it was always a name that everyone kind of knew growing up, and he's a legend in New Jersey, and it's his impact on people in my generation is something that's gonna last a really long time.
I mean, I'm old enough that I can remember the people when the Flyers won the Cups in '74 and '75, that they were playing street hockey guys that didn't know anything about hockey at all. So, I mean, I saw that iteration of it. But to me, the first name that jumped in my head as we were talking off, camera about what the Gaudreau brothers meant was Muggsy Bogues, to be honest with you. If you remember who Muggsy Bogues was. Muggsy Bogues played in the NBA. He was like 5'5", or 5'4". I mean, so against all the 7-footers and 6'7" guys, he just didn't, and then it's interesting because like Theo Fleury was undersized, different guys that, the league has changed, and they never said no. Like, they never thought, especially Johnny, never thought like, look, my size is an impediment. In fact, if anything, he thought it was a benefit to him, because you can't hit what you can't catch.
The Gaudreaus really just helped grow the game in New Jersey. It's especially in South Jersey, growing Gloucester Catholic and growing the Hollydale rink and helping everybody out down there. It's really just amazing what they did.
For hockey as a whole, I mean, they mean so much to the sport. I mean, you look at what both of them have done as, at least here in New Jersey, to start with. I mean, obviously they're Jersey boys. That's the biggest thing. And for me, as at least a young kid, when Johnny made his debut in the NHL, I was 13. Seeing a kid from New Jersey, especially for somebody who loved the sport as much, seeing a kid like that just thrive immediately, it impacts a lot of people, and especially my age and younger kids as well. His impact and Maddie's impact are just unbelievable in the hockey world. They do so much, or they did so much for the hockey space across the board, wherever they were, whether it is for Johnny in Calgary or Columbus, wherever, and then same thing for Maddie across the board. They did so much for the sport in terms of not just the play and the level of play and how skilled and talented they were, but they were good men. And I think that's what a lot of people really take away from who they were, is they were good people.